Well, let's get started. Start with a roll call. Jeff is here. Steve Geisel is here. Joe Softly is here.
Jeff Perry, because we got another Jeff.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Jeff Perry.
Yeah.
Joe's here. Joe's here. Dave is here. As I understand, is Patricia on Zoom? And is Steve on Zoom, or is he not here yet?
Steve is not on Zoom.
Okay, so he'll probably be joining us here shortly. And so we have a quorum, Debbie?
Yes, you will.
All right. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
And Mom. And Mike. Yeah, good to see you all here. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So,
Thank you, Jeff. Second by Steve Geisel. I would like to add just one item to the agenda, if that's all right, if that's okay with everybody. So a motion, an amendment to that motion is that I'd like to add under new business, just a brief discussion about the role of SRA, the Semi-Annual Resort Association versus Semi-Annual Residence Association. Short discussion, but I want to add that so that it's on the agenda. And any other discussion about the agenda? All in favor?
I,
Any opposition? All right. Debbie, would you like to move forward with announcements?
Certainly. Again, welcome to Mike and Mohammed and to Jeff from the Sonoma Golf Country Club. And we'd like to take a moment to thank Helen Worley for all her time and effort and good work on the elections committee. To let the board know the Thanksgiving holiday, the SRA Center will be closed the 25th and 26th. And the next regular board meeting, it was left open whether the board wanted to meet on the 9th or the 16th. So will there be a preference of the board on which day you would like? The 16th is the third Thursday, which is typical of the meeting schedule. Some past boards have liked to do it earlier because of the holiday and such, so it's completely at your preference.
Joe,
my preference would be the 16th because it's hard to get completed financials or something similar by the 6th or whatever in time for the meeting. Well, I'm one vote out of 2.
is everybody going to be around on the 16th?
Yes.
Okay, so let's just do it plan on the 16th
Sounds good. Okay.
and schedule.
All right. And that's all we have for announcements.
Okay, minutes were in the package for the last board meeting of October 21st. Is there a motion to accept those minutes? Thank you, John. Is there a second? Thank you, Jane. Any discussion, any changes, anything we want to do there? Any corrections? Okay. All in favor of adopting those minutes, including those minutes? Aye. Any opposition? Okay, that's unanimous. The minutes from the AGM meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? Thanks, John. Is there a second? Thank you, Steve. Geisel. Any corrections, changes, discussions about those minutes?
I would just note that they're verbose in many respects versus our normal meetings. That's okay. It reflects the resident participation.
Yeah, I was pleased to see all of the different comments and the responses. I thought that was good, especially from a document in the future. All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Great, they're approved. Is there anybody, Lori, in member open forum? I think you're muted.
Received any chats from anybody saying that they wish to speak?
Okay, and we'll move on. Our report from our illustrious and very short-term executive director.
Thank you, Doug. First is the AGM recap. I think that the minutes, you all had a chance to review those, and so that's a very timely recap of how the meeting went. I think that it went well. Obviously, there's going to be more discussion moving forward in the future about the location, costs, and so on and so forth. And I believe, Patricia, correct me if I'm wrong, there were approximately 75 people that participated via Zoom and about 33 that were in person, excluding board and staff. And that is about a typical number range for the history of.
The combination of 30 people attending, and most of them on Zoom. It fluctuated a little bit from the beginning until the end, but it was an average of 108 all around.
Thank you, Patricia. And then,
Before we move off of that, I just wanted to mention that I've gotten a lot of positive comments on the AGM. And so thanks to all you guys and your committee members for the good work they did for the AGM.
I echo that. And then a few of the major outcomes of the meeting is that all the board resolutions passed, as did the member resolution. And I have prepared the recording document for Doug to sign in witness of a notary. And then the document will be recorded and we'll get that out to the membership so that they all have a copy of it. So since it was approved at the AGM, I don't know if you want to go through a motion to do the recording of the amendment or not. It's just kind of the next step of what we do.
I think it's pretty much perfunctory after it was passed at the board.
So I'll turn that paperwork over to Doug, and if it's convenient, he'll get in and go and have that to notarize and get that back to me.
And that was prepared by Richard, correct?
I worked with Richard. I gave him all the resolutions, and he went through and made. I think that I copied the folks on the governance committee on this, and so again, it's all gone through review with him.
Terrific.
Okay. All right, and I didn't have any other comments on the AGM. Joe?
So regarding the resolutions going forward, when they're available to the residents, can we make sure that they're easily accessible on the website? Because the website is very difficult to navigate if you don't know where to go.
Yeah.
So that would be one thing that would be very desirable, so that the residents actually know it's there and actually know it's being put in place. The second thing regarding the AGM, so Debbie made a comment that 100 people in total is normal. Well, I've been to about 3 of them where that's not normal. I've been there where it's been a couple hundred. But if we're going to spend $4,000 or $4,500 on an AGM, I would severely like to see that we plan things a little bit different going forward. I'd like that to be recorded in this meeting, because spending $100 a person or $25 for people who attend, $25 or $30 on cookies and coffee when most of it goes to waste seems like a significant waste of money. And we need to figure this out in a better way.
Yeah, I think when we get ready for the AGM, it seems like there should be something that goes out to ask the residents to respond whether they're going to attend or not, which would help us.
I like we did that.
Yes.
In the ballot.
It's in the ballot.
How many responses do we get, by the way?
Jill,
It'd be interesting to match and see, did 20 people say they would be
Lori,
coming?
if I could ask you to take a look at that off of Election Runner, and we can report that at the next board meeting, that would be great. Okay. While we're on that topic that Joe just mentioned, trying to be proactive, because we always have to plan ahead and at least have a location in case we don't have any other location. I asked Justine to contact the hotel to see if there were dates available in the 3rd or 4th week of October. And the response that we got from the senior sales manager is that basically they're booking out large events and buying out the entire facility. And so it was, the minimum required spend for October 22 would require a $25,000 food and beverage minimum per day, 5,000 room rental, and 75 guest rooms per night. And then they went on to say, if your group is interested in reducing pricing similar to past events, we would need to look into rates and availability as we get closer to your preferred events date/month. If your dates are flexible, we typically have more flexibility 30 to 60 days prior to arrival. So this, I think, will need to be a main focus for the board at the beginning of the year. So right now on the meeting schedule, it says October 29th, but obviously that's going to be subject to change. So.
Sure.
We'll need to find somebody, you know, from Columbia that might have some pull.
Help you out.
Or we should look at other venues too.
That's unconscionable. Really,
It is.
throw that out there like that.
It's, was it because audience visual, was that expensive?
Part of the additional expense this year was to do the hybrid meeting. Yes.
And how much was that? At least
200
half?
people
Yes.
last
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Next year, maybe 200.
So is there any other
I
comments on
think
the
it should be
issue?
100, what I understand.
One meeting, everybody share.
Okay, moving on to item B, the Carnegie bioswale update. Mr. Kine?
This week, Richard spoke with the lawyer for Semiola LLC. They made some minor changes to the rescission agreement. Richard made those and sent that out on the 12th. And received a note back yesterday from Semiola LLC. Sorry she hadn't been back to it, but hopes to get to it in the next day or two. So I think that I suspect that last document that's been sent around is probably going to work for everybody. And hopefully it'll just be a sign at this point forward.
Thank you, Doug. Next is the maintenance report. If everyone had an opportunity to read that report that Bruce provided, the main topics have been the Drayton Hillside 2 bioswale, the street sweeper, the storm drain system, and I know we're going to get into that a little bit more further in the agenda, and then just general things that are going on in the maintenance department. Bruce is attending via Zoom, so if anyone had any specific questions, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer those.
Joe.
So one thing regarding the street sweeper is that we've now done 2 months of disposal of leaves, and we're at about $7,500. And $5,000 for the month of October, actually more than 5,000, I just signed a check, is we can't keep moving forward with that, especially since a budget never considered any of these costs for disposal, not even close. So if just doing some street sweeping is costing us $5,000 for a month when leaves fall on the ground, and they're still falling, we've got storms that are going by, we're going to be in big trouble when it comes down to budgetary things for street sweeping. We got to figure out a different solution, including what did we used to do? Because we didn't have any of these types of things. We got to figure out something a little bit more proactively rather than the way we're doing it right now.
So Debbie, maybe you can respond to that, and then we'll ask Bruce to respond. But in the past, did we have what we sweep up? Has it always had to go to an environmentally sensitive dump?
It did not in the past.
Is that the big difference in cost?
Yes, we had a local person in Blaine that had basically a fill site and said, sure, bring the debris here. And it was a very minimal cost. And that opportunity has gone by the wayside, and now with all the environmental requirements and such that Bruce researched, now we're in the situation that we're in with these high costs.
Well, so when he did this research, why didn't any of these costs come up? Because the amount of money that we just spent in the last 2 months is not indicative of any budget that he gave us for street sweeping debris.
Bruce, could you go ahead and join in and help with the answer to that, please? Hi, Steve. Lori, is Bruce muted?
Debbie, this is Bruce. I'm having a hard time hearing what's going on. I understand there's a question about street sweeper debris.
That's correct, and the high cost. And an alternative option to help lower those costs.
Okay, again, you wanted some background on the cost, is that it?
So my question more or less is, why is it costing so much for what we're actually disposing of compared to the budget that you put together for the entire cost of maintenance and the street sweeper debris?
Okay, Joe, I think I understand. We have no history on what it was, what much we were dumping, I'll say that, in the past. I based the estimate on one dump per month during the summer and 2 months dumped during the winter. That is, I'm finding out, was a pretty low estimate. We're actually right now, every time we have a storm, we fill up the 30-yard container, actually 15 yards, and it's dumped. The cost now is running $1,200 per dump. So that estimate was off. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, it's by a magnitude of a bunch, which impacts our ability to stay anywhere near our budget as it pertains to maintenance.
So Debbie, when we bid with the company, and what was it, Whirlwind or something like that, and they gave us an estimate of about $1,600 per event, per sweep. How is that cost stack up against the costs that we're incurring?
I believe, Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that was a quarterly sweep.
But it was a single sweep, right?
It was a single
For
sweep.
$1,600.
Mhm.
And how many sweeps did we do? Say
In October, we had four, I'm gonna answer, we had 4 dumps of debris. And that's, Bruce was just saying about $1,200, which is true, it's about $5,200 after tax. So for 4 dumps, now I don't know if that, but we're doing sweeping more often because there's a desire to keep the community better. But I'm sitting here, if over a 4-month period, we're gonna be paying 20 grand or something like that, and then $2,000 a month prior to that, we're in the vicinity of $30,000, $40,000 a year of debris. Never mind what it costs to run the street sweeper, including wages, et cetera, et cetera. That's an entirely different ballgame than what was being thought about in the past and in the budget. And so I'm not saying we don't do it. I'm just saying we're not in a good position when it comes down to that particular scenario as the budget was created. And keep in mind, he created the budget. We just look at it and we trust, and he created the budget.
So Bruce, are there alternative dump sites for this material that is more cost effective, do you think? Bruce?
Oh, okay, here we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we ran into with this sweeping is we're accountable for the street sweeping to be not a environmental hazard. What that entails, it has to go to a testing site. Once it's tested, it can be dumped as just vegetation. But if it does contain street chemicals, asbestos, oils, or whatever, then it has to be treated. There is no option of just going to another company and saying, hey, would you pick it up and dump it? As far as Whirlwind goes, I believe that $1,600 did not have them dumping it at a registered site. In fact, as I recall, they actually were hauling it over to Slater Road and dumping it.
So have we performed any testing to find out whether or not we have to go to a special dump site?
Doug, no, we have not tested it, but I've been monitoring that. We're only paying for it as vegetation being disposed of. There has been no contaminants registered. My thought process is this week was, after I saw the bill, to get a hold of SSC, talk to them a little bit about the dumping, and then see if we can't get a report back that our street sweepings are not hazardous, and then we could be just hauling it directly to Slater Road, which would significantly reduce the cost.
The alternative to that is, as we discussed at one point, to try and find some property reasonably close that we could create a composting facility and figure out how the landscape folks around here, what they're doing, and perhaps we can get them to add to the compost. And then at the end of the day, if we can do that, then we've got topsoil that we can turn around and have residents come and get if they want. So I think we need to look into that. You know, if we have to test it every once in a while, so be it. But I don't see why we even think about paying those high costs to dump if we haven't tested.
Yeah, it's just leaves, it's effectively leaves.
Yeah.
In the last month or two, we're paying $5,000 to dump leaves.
And I can't imagine that there's enough oil in the streets to create any kind of a sensitivity. But
Anyways, I just wanted to bring that
Test.
up. It's
I
just,
think it needs to be tested though,
absolutely.
because it's also pine needles and stuff that tend to actually collect the oils. So I think before we, or there's probably a regulation too. Every once in a while I have to check. I don't know.
Never did expect so.
You know, the environmental regulations seem to be pretty strict these days.
Jeff, what do you guys do at the golf course?
So at the resort, there's a compost pile that we just work on today in the parking lot. And it's right there next to the back dumpster. And at the golf course, we have our own private dump sites. They're pretty small.
Yeah.
And you guys wouldn't have any concern about any contaminants in that then?
No, we put all kinds of stuff on the golf course.
Good answer. Okay, where are we here?
Move on. I have one last.
Maintenance report. Oh,
Oh, sorry.
Bruce, are you going to give us a kind of a follow-up on the storm event at this point, or is that later?
We have the Drayton Cove breakfast easement later, but I don't see any reason why you couldn't do that now.
Yeah. Can you just give us a report on, you know, our preparedness, our response, and kind of what happened relative to all this water?
I apologize from my side. My connection is terrible. Doug, I understand you want a recap of the recent storm. Is that correct?
Yeah, just kind of what did, you know, we had a couple of weeks of notice, at least a week of notice that this big storm was headed directly for us with a lot of water. Just kind of from a maintenance perspective, what did we do as far as any thinking about preparing for it? And then how did we do as it relates to responding to it?
Well, I think first thing that I'll say is having a more manpower available would have helped. Your thoughts on having the board come in saved us a lot of time and effort where we would have been just cleaning ditches, or then with this, we were able to respond to down trees and actual flooding. So I think having a list of volunteers in preparation for the storm would be the first thing I'd recommend. Other than that, I really can't think of anything that would have prepared us any better than we were. We could have had people on standby, but you know, and maybe some heads up when things are going south on us throughout the SRA.
John, in the maintenance committee, have you thought about having kind of a post-event kind of follow-up to figure out what kind of protocols we might want to put in place going forward when we know that we're going to be hit with a big storm?
No, we have not done
I think it might be wise to maybe have a maintenance committee and Bruce and whoever else want to participate to kind of just do a postmortem on it, figure out what went well, what didn't work, what we should be doing in the future as it relates to.
I thought that with the publication that goes out with the weekly, just for my part on safety and security, that we could have put a blurb out there to homeowners to please, check your drains, make certain that if there are any leaves collecting, to please get those out. And kind of just to, take ownership in what's out in front of your yard.
Steve?
I wanted to ask about Boundary Ridge because, there's been residents flooding now twice, at least twice. And yesterday, water was still pouring up out of the stormwater drains onto the road over there, on Schuler. So we're on notice that the system doesn't seem to be properly handling heavy rain over there and what are we going to do about it?
I think that one thing we have to remember that this is what, a 100-year storm or a 500-year storm? I'm not sure, how it's classified. And I don't think any of our systems are designed for those big events, but I agree with you.
I think that one was fixed though, right? Bruce, the one that Steve's talking about,
it's bubbling up.
it's still bubbling up because they pulled a log out of it.
Yeah, right, but after the storm isn't when it needs to be working.
Yeah, but there was some log. Bruce, can you talk to them about Steve's?
Is that question to me?
Yes.
Okay. Jeff, you were speaking to the log that we found in the inlet to Boundary Ridge, correct?
Yeah, well, that was what Steve was asking about, the comment about the water was coming out of that.
Okay. That I think I understand the question. I'll try to answer it. Steve, feel free to correct me if I'm headed down the wrong path. That quote log came from the ditch across the street. It came into that catch basin and clogged the area. Other than asking the city to put I call it a culvert guard over the front of it, there's nothing else that could really be done.
So that came out of a city ditch, is that right?
Yes, it came into, there's a concrete culvert that runs under the road that enters the first basin within Boundary Ridge. That's where the problem started. That's what the flooding occurred. Once that culvert and catch basin was plugged up, the street flooded over into Boundary Ridge also.
So Steve Haynes, you said this is multiple times, the second time at least. Do you have any idea if it was the same sort of circumstance or know that it caused it in the house? I know the resident doesn't care, or the residents that are affected don't care. But if it's somehow related with the city of Blaine, given that we pay a hell of a lot of property tax to the city of Blaine, maybe we need to, we've talked in general about having a government relations type of person. Maybe we need to think about that a little more formally so that we can have somebody going there and saying, here are some problems with it here.
Steve?
I'll just say, and Bruce, I want you to hear this, is you and your team were very visible. Early on when the rains started happening, I saw Leroy, I saw you traveling around. Leroy was incredibly helpful, and because of his knowledge of how the storm system works, he was there, he was available. He was trying to get the city to open up the quote unquote pumps. But what he got, because he used my phone, is what pumps. So
From the city?
Yeah, from the city. So there are pumps apparently that are there, they haven't been used in 10 years plus, but they were there to be helpful. I don't know what ended up happening on that, but all I'm going to say is I saw the SRA team is, you know, small team as it is, they're out there and they're working hard. And it was only later in the day that I began to see some of the city team show up.
Well, on this particular Shearwater thing, I have to be walking. Excuse me. You want to say something?
You can go first.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I happen to be on walking, and a lady that lives in Boundary Ridge mentioned this particular issue with Shearwater. And so I walked over to, and she said the city was there. And the city said they can't touch it because it's in our property. So this goes to the function of having some sort of a liaison with the city of Blaine, so we can actually figure out who's on first and who's on second.
Well, I will say that the Director of Public Works lives in City Hall, as does the number 2 guy in Public Works. And what I would suggest is that we get a team meeting set up with the city to talk about these kinds of issues, and we should include Leroy in that discussion, and Bruce and John's team, so that, you know, going forward, we at least feel like we're coordinated.
So I had a question for Bruce. Yesterday you sent me a drawing of the Boundary Ridge stormwater map that seems to show water from pretty much right in front of Semiahmoo Drive here, right in front of the building, the ditch that goes into a culvert underneath the road and into the stormwater system in Boundary Ridge, very near that catch basin that it was bubbling up. Is that correct?
Correct, John.
So which catch basin were you talking about? The one that was blocked with a log or something? Is that the one at the cul-de-sac there or down on the other end of the neighborhood?
John, it's the one in the cul-de-sac. There
Okay.
should be an orange line across my drawing showing it going into that cul-de-sac. That's the county's cul-de-sac, and that's where that log or stick came from.
Right, so that was county water from this side of the road going into that storm catch basin on this side of the culvert, across the road into the Boundary Ridge neighborhood is where the bulk of that water is coming.
Right. It's coming right
From
off,
our neighborhood.
right off the C-store, just right by the building here.
Yes, so that's an important distinction, and I believe that seems to me that even existed.
Those will be county ditches out there.
I believe so.
The city limits is,
I did see a city truck out looking at the blockage that's right down here. Yeah, on our side.
I saw the street truck too.
Yeah. I think that the county starts just beyond that.
I think where the roads, where the nice asphalt ends and then the gravel part and the raw gravel, that's, I think, the county line right there.
They still use the city of Blaine. I mean, they use Blaine PO box. PO metrics.
No, but I think it's important, as he said, we need to, as you said, that we need to get all these stakeholders around the table, because, you know, the residents come to us. I just happen to be walking out on, and she said, "You're a board," and I said, "Yeah." She said, "You know about this issue, we're being flooded." And, you know, so.
yeah, we're out there cleaning
We were all out there cleaning, so that's fine, but that particular one was bubbling up.
And I think we all need to understand responsibilities and accountabilities, because at the bottom of Erie is a main storm drain right out to Drayton Harbor. I guess that's under the city's purview, right? Trying to understand, what are we responsible for? What are we not responsible for? I get confused.
And someone had seemingly popped the top off of that.
Yeah, one of them, there's two storm
And there's
drains.
a bubbling right over the top.
Yeah,
Yeah, the water popped, what I was told is the water popped the top.
Well, it was neatly placed beside it, so I don't think it was right there. It's possible.
yeah, but it needed to, because it needed to be pressure, because the pressure it was on the other, there's two storm drains there. There's one on each side of the path. And in the morning before, someone relieved the pressure, it was blowing on the other side. So there's a lot of erosion issues around there, but they're not substantial. So that water needs to get out because that's half the hill runs down through there right into Drayton Harbor.
So we are making an effort to increase our knowledge of the existing information about the stormwater system so that we can clarify what Mr. Berg pointed out were several places where the city feeds to us and then we feed back to the city and then the city feeds back to us again and that sort of thing. It's got to be a cooperative effort. And that's obviously.
And probably nobody knows that whole layout better than Leroy. So,
But we need to have it and perpetuate it so that when Leroy's on vacation and this happens, we don't have a problem.
yes.
Bruce is working on that. Are you not, Bruce?
Is that a question to Bruce?
Bruce, you are working on as much documentation of the existing stormwater system and interfaces with third parties as possible, correct? Your mapping project?
John, I'm not going to go Zoom anymore. I'm going to be at those meetings. I'm getting about half of what you're asking.
So I was just clarifying that you are indeed actively working on the stormwater mapping project you've got going. That is true, correct?
That is correct. Can I throw a suggestion to the board? We met, John, Steve, and I, and what we came up with was an idea that we had Leroy and Ken Johns work as a team to go into the county or into the city and get us some really good documentation on the water system. We can take that and put into what I'm working on, John.
That's a good idea.
Any idea how the Carnoustie bioswale soil, things Carnoustie bioswale worked?
Had water in it.
Because it wasn't actually working, right? According to the.
My understanding is it's
engineering,
never been
it's not
maintained, it's not collecting water, it's not depositing it where it's supposed to, it's depositing elsewhere.
You would have thought it would create a catastrophic.
Such as my understanding.
Yeah.
I saw a little write-up from Dan. Was there any more information on the overflow at Drayton Cove catchwater basin?
I don't think so.
I looked at the Drayton Lake, it's technically called, and there was a bathtub rain that was about the day after, about 3 feet lower than it had been, but it was nowhere near overflowing. It still had double the capacity.
So it has to be something coming in that wasn't able to get out, I mean, other than just rise. And,
Well, I wonder if the drain is just big enough to facilitate the amount of water that was coming into it. Bruce, do you know if that drain out of the Drayton Cove pond is clean?
Yes, the drain is, I think you said clean.
Yes.
Yes. Actually, Leroy went down there this morning and took some photos of it. There was partial covering of leaves, but it was at full capacity. And that's why it got so full.
Yeah, it just probably wasn't sized to accommodate that much water flow. Be my guess.
Can I speak it?
In this conversation on a silver, with a silver line, I think for the amount of water that we had, this is a once in how many years storm. And we didn't have any like catastrophic failures. That's a success, I think.
Yeah, I think the only real failures that I saw that were significant were the two homes at the end of the cul-de-sac in Boundary Ridge, where the river was just running right into the front doors of those two homes.
There was further down on Shearwater, there was water that was running beside a resident's house. I did leave a message, I couldn't contact them. And then as things opened up, there was another house that was affected by the flow of water. So So
So for 800 homes,
Compared to what happened in the
The
greater
county.
area, yeah.
okay, anything else, Bruce, on your maintenance report?
I'm good. If anybody doesn't have any questions.
continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
And last on my report is the draft of the 2022 board meeting schedule. I had presented it on the third Thursday at, like to continue at 4 o'clock, and I was wondering if that was acceptable to the board, or if you wanted a different date or time. Are we good with that?
Everybody good?
Great. And I've already mentioned the AGM, so that'll be a further topic of discussion. So thank you, Doug. That's all I have.
Well, I guess the only thing is, on the map, you're here today, but did you guys change your board? Because we was also the third Thursday of the month at 4 p.m. And when I talked to Terry Mahoney, who's the president now, he said that that was the time they were going to have. They were adjusting it now because some people were in Europe. But going forward, will it go back to 4 p.m. on the third Thursday?
That's
Because
my understanding.
then we would have this, then we wouldn't be able to have this overlap.
Yeah, I think if that's the case, then we should maybe change our day to Wednesday, so that.
Because I think it's important to have them here.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll Wednesdays then. We'll do.
Thank you.
Well, should we ask, do we need to get kind of a directive from you guys if that will work?
Well, Terry had asked me to bring up the meeting, and I said I would. I didn't know if you were coming, Jeff, so that's great.
Yeah.
But so
I
Terry,
brought it to Terry's attention. I said, hey, we've got a conflict. I'd like to be at both, or somebody would like to be at both. So, you know, I can take this back to him. Thank you.
So we'll just plan the Wednesday and subject to your confirmation, Jeff.
So does that change the December 16th? Is that a Thursday?
See, this is for 2022.
Okay.
We'll reissue that.
We could change our December meeting to Wednesday if everybody wants to. I mean, I would prefer to have our meetings when City and Resort folks can be here. Let's do Wednesday the 15th. Okay,
That's fine.
all right. I don't think we need a motion for that. Let's just agree to it. Okay,
Still at 4 o'clock in 2022?
4 o'clock.
Just to note, these meetings that have been sent out already, I can't seem to change the date or time on them since they're official invites. So, maybe Lori can do that, Justine.
Okay.
Next on the agenda is treasurer's report. Joe, I think you mentioned that you may not have a treasurer's report
I
today.
do not have one.
Okay,
May I ask a special request? Since that Jeff's here, I want him, usually at the beginning of these meetings, I remember that we would ask Nicole if she wanted it. So do we want to ask Jeff if he has anything that he wants to talk to about, or is that like, I don't think it's scheduled anywhere.
you can yield your time to Jeff if you have, like to just kind of give us an update as to what's going on with the resort and golf course.
We survived as well, the catastrophic event pretty well. And our maintenance team is down at the resort today. I don't know if anybody had a chance to check that out. And 8 laborers, 4.5 hours, and cleaning things up down there, and it looks pretty good. Steve, you got some pictures. So that'll continue to be a project that the maintenance crew and golf course will help out down at the resort to clean things up and get it tidy looking.
I wanted to tell a story. So I do our normal walk in the morning. I came around the corner towards the front of the resort and I see all these workers. I'm like, holy cow, because they basically have one guy, you know, kind of a jack of all trades trying to do the landscaping before. I'm like, what, did they outsource? What's going on? And then I remembered what you had said. I said, I think this is the golf course team. So I went over and talked to the guy. I said, you guys from the country club? They said, yeah, they were working away, clearing leaf. And then I drove down there just before this meeting and it looks fabulous. I mean, they didn't replant anything, but they cleaned it up and it looks really good. So it was great. Later in the day, I saw them all coming back up the hill in their buggies and their golf carts and their maintenance carts. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was productive.
Yeah, that would be a good, I think a good decision. Because I noticed, you know,
There's some leaves under there that were about 20 years old.
Is that ongoing then, Jeff?
It's new and we're just, again, trying to build more bridges between the resort and golf course. Because it hadn't been as such. And so we're looking at budget money from the resort to help Vance and his team with labor and with equipment so that we can help out down there because they're overwhelmed. And just, they just don't really know how to handle it. So where our team does.
Does that create challenges then for, because I know Vance's team is small and, you know, to maintain the golf course alone is not easy.
Hmm.
And then to have to take care of the hotel, is that also been factored in going forward?
So Vance and I talk often and I've given him every opportunity, you know, hey, let's keep thinking about this. Is this really what we want to do? My hope is that we can establish enough labor from the resort side on their budget where I hope that they come and report to Vance and that we can use them on the golf course side when needed, and then take more people down to the resort. And because, so 40 hours today, let's just, you know, eight times 4.5, so probably 36 hours. But one person or two wouldn't have gotten that done in a week. There's no way. It just with the number of backpack blowers and big turbines and blowers, and it just, there's just no way one person could have ever done what we did in a half a day. So it's a discussion. Vance is very open to the idea. He likes the idea. I'm very cautious with his time. Golf course first, and then, you know, how do we manage and help out with the resort?
just to piggyback on that discussion, Steve and I, and thanks for Steve for setting it up, met with Jeff, Vance, and Micah.
Mm-hmm.
And we agreed that it would be good to have an ongoing monthly meeting, that includes the marina president as well, to just talk about where we can optimize, where there's an opportunity to optimize, where we can help each other out. And we had some brainstorming, and it was a very productive meeting. And it was nice to see that there's a sense of community that can really be developed amongst all of our groups. And I just think as we move forward, it'll be interesting to see some of the things that come out of that.
We felt the same way. Yes, thank you for feeling that way. We felt the same.
Terrific.
One question I had, do you know what the volume of debris that you dumped in October was? Just out of curiosity, just for dump sites and.
So I think in two of I just saw the invoice today from Debbie, and I think one of the dumps was 10,300 pounds. Another one was, I think, 10,500 pounds. And the other two, I don't recall, but they would have been, I think, somewhere around 8,000 pounds. Or
Bruce has got a hand that looks like.
Oh,
Yes,
yes, Bruce.
waving at us.
You're muted,
You're
Bruce.
muted, Bruce.
Is that working?
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry about that. The total for 4 weeks was 20 tons.
Oh, so about 40,000 pounds. So that'd be about what I was going to guess from the invoice.
Hey, Bruce, do you have any idea of how much how many cubic yards that was?
Let me do a quick calculation. About 60,000 cubic yards.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Gee, I think there's a big difference if,
You mean cubic feet?
Sorry, John, say again.
Cubic feet, you mean, not yards. That would be the size of.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's the container itself is a 30-yard container. So I'm going off 30 cubic yards and we fill it halfway and they dump it. So that's how I came up with the 30. We had 4 loads. Or, I'm sorry, 60. We came with 4 loads.
60 cubic yards then.
Correct, 60 cubic yards, divided by 9.
It's a little different. I don't have anything else unless there's questions for the resort or the golf course.
I have a question to Jeff. So along the lines of quote unquote sharing, the one thing I'm not gonna ask the question is borrowing your resources or whatever, but you or the golf course resort has a lot of staff that I think might be part-time, contracted, whatever, for periods of time in the year. Is there a pool of those people that you guys utilize completely, or are there maybe one or two or three or four more that could be utilized periodically by the SRA? Well, we would pay for those people, even if they were under your budget. We borrowed them, we pay you for them if we utilize them, because we've got a fairly extensive external budget or external workers budget in our budget or a set of things for next year. And what we're trying to figure out is, are there some people we can utilize that are quote unquote local? I know it might not be local, as opposed to just one landscaping company or something like that. So along the lines of sharing or utilizing resources or common resources, because I know they're awesome workers. You see them at the golf course on a regular basis. If there's an opportunity, maybe we can utilize some of the pool or additional parts of the pool of workers wherever you get them.
I think it's a great conversation to have.
Bruce?
Mute.
Unmute, Bruce.
That's an excellent idea, Joe. Sudden Valley incorporated that into their parks. Actually, the turf care group out there took care of our parks until they actually came up with their own department for parks. They also backed us up on some of the other storm situations we ran into, such as snow plowing. But yeah, I'd love to work with that idea.
Terrific.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
You betcha. Good idea.
Anything else on maintenance? Okay. Finance committee report, Joe?
Nothing this time.
Okay, great. I'm good. I'm glad to hear that. We can move quickly. Steve, AFC, because I know Steve's got a lot of.
Even better news. We apparently had some communication difficulties between the office and the standards are not ready for discussion.
Terrific.
They will be ready. We finished doing them today, so they will be ready for next. Now, secondly,
before we move off the standards question, just a real quick question for you on those standards. Now, are you migrating existing standards, or are there a bunch of new standards?
These are revisions of the existing standards. For purpose of clarity, we've separated them into 3 documents instead of 1, because in the current document, you read for a while and then it says this applies only to multifamily, and then you go down here. And so we're separated multifamily out from the single. We've got landscaping separate because it applies to both. And we think it's clearer and easier to use. We didn't change anything that we haven't changed. There's nothing in these documents that require the CC&R change. They're completely compatible with the current CC&R. The other thing that didn't, so my report consists of minutes. We have an update to the fine the board voted on at the last meeting. I suspect we should do that in executive session, but it won't take long. And I had wanted to bring the potential solutions to the Carnoustie buffer thing forward, but somehow that got completely lost in the process and isn't being packed. So that's where we are.
Well, actually, just a bunch of time.
We did just run a bunch of time, and the other is the fee revisions for the submittal. And this has been going again because we met this morning, and Joe and I have been talking about this in some detail. The current proposal from this morning, taking Joe's very good suggestions about simplifying this thing, and his noticing that the original schedule didn't make any sense. And we just increased it by 50%, so it made 50% less sense. The current proposal is that the base fee goes to $4,500 for a single residence submittal.
And that was in the AGM, by the way. That was reported at the AGM.
Yeah, that was reported at the AGM, and that is based on a cost analysis and a formal decision that we made to cover the construction compliance consultant and half of the ASC administrator's position with those fees. That when you go to multi-unit buildings, that a duplex would be 6,000. And you would add 300 for each unit that's part of that building beyond 2. But if you submit 2 duplexes, each one would be 6,000.
So it'd be, for a multifamily, it'd be 6,000 plus 300 a unit.
Plus 300 unit up to forever. At this point, that's the simplest way to do it. Now, you can make an argument that a 20-unit building is likely going to be more complex than the duplex, and that maybe the base fee should be different. It should be higher at some level. We don't have the time or expertise to make that decision quickly. When I checked, Blaine, our single residence submission fee is slightly higher than Blaine's, but not out of range. It's Seattle does it by square foot, no, by cost, estimated cost of the project, and we fit into, we're lower than Seattle for projects of similar estimated cost. But we're in the range, I mean, we're not way below. And even the other ones available is the Department of Health, Washington State Department of Health, and we're below that. But for example, the Seattle for a $1 million house is like 12,000. Their multi-unit's hard to figure out. This Department of Health for $1 million house is 8,000. And Blaine's permit up to $1 million is 32. So we're a bit above Blaine, we're significantly below Seattle. And these numbers, done the way we're proposing, an 11 unit building would be 87,000, 30 unit building would be 14,000. So the escalation is.
So if you do multifamily, and let's say they're a group of fourplexes, is it each building separate, or is it the overall?
The recommendation from the committee is that each building would pay the fee for a building of that size. And the rationale is that the buildings each have a somewhat different site and different considerations that have to be taken into account that take the time of the consultant, the administrator, and the committee.
So number one, for everyone in the room, because I know there's a couple of people this may be brand new, this is purely cost recovery. Any fees that are charged are purely attempting to recover some of the costs. Secondly, I'm going to ask Steve and maybe the board. So if there's identical duplexes, fourplexes, whatever it may be, theoretical, identical, is it possible that there could be decreased fees from $6,000 per 2 units, or I guess it'd be $6,600 for 4 units, using your example? I guess it could be possible if they made a petition and the board could look at it and see what they said. See especially.
Yeah, I mean, I asked that question exactly that question specifically in the committee. Remember, I don't vote on it. I'm just on the message. And they explicitly said no. That, and actually, if you look at the way Carnoustie would go up, there are four unit buildings, some of which would have to be cut into the hillside, some of which would sit up on top. Their case was each building is different in its relationship to the property. And that's the rationale.
Going along 10 would be the other one, you know, on the first half of the 10th hole, I guess on the parkway, would be another one where they could be, you know, that we can see, that we know is going to be developed at some point in time. But by that time, there may be a different set of thoughts or configurations, architectural thoughts.
And if the board feels that we should spend the time to develop a tiered program and take all that into account and everything, I think we're happy to do that.
Like 6 months.
But given what's happening, we ought to get our fees in line with reality as quickly as we can. We're suggesting put this in place, and if you want to do more, we're happy to do that in your instruction.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Anything else on the SE?
Do we need to vote on that? The proposal that was brought forward to increase the fees, or is that not something that's a votable thing?
I would make a motion and vote on it, yes.
So I propose that the fee for a single unit review, submittal review, be established at $4,500. For 2 units, for duplex, 6,000, and for any building with more than 2 units in it, it's an additional $300 per unit beyond 2.
Second.
Moved by Steve, seconded by Steve. Any further discussion?
Nice work.
Yeah, so I know there's been just a ton of work going on. So, all in favor? Any opposition? I don't hear any.
Okay, so I saved you a bunch of time and got you a bunch of money. That's a good thing.
That's a good thing. Cover a bunch of that.
How do you want to spend money?
All right, is Peggy Burton on? I don't know.
Lori, is Peggy here?
He is not.
Okay, then we'll move on. I think there was a elections committee report. Steve?
I just want to bring up, and I guess we'll do it and we'll do the preliminary work in governance, but I've heard from a number of people in the community dissatisfaction with the current elections process, the lack of opportunity to meet the candidates, to have discussion and that sort of thing. And I think we need to look at the election process.
I think it's a good idea. Would governance and the elections committee think that would be something that you want to work on together?
Yeah,
I would think.
I would think so.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about that, Steve, or are you saying that they're unhappy with the people who just got elected?
No.
No, they're happy with the ones they elected
I was
throughout the last year.
I was hoping.
Gentlemen, stay tuned.
If I can make a comment, you know, I can appreciate the sentiment behind that, but until we have more candidates and open seats, it's kind of a waste of time. You know, it would be nice to meet people and understand, you know, their perspectives and where they come from. We get that in the bios right now. I know that's superficial, but
To which I would answer, I think that we build interest and understanding about the board by having a more robust public discussion about it, and that we'd be likely to get more quickly to that wonderful place where there's really an election by doing it.
Yeah, and we could do that because I like the fact that we had town halls for our budget review and input. Well, we could incorporate it into those those meetings.
Get to know the candidates, kind of. A minute, a couple minutes each. Have them learn to know.
Okay. Thank you, Peggy Burton, for your report. Everybody saw that report, so we'll move on.
Did you guys read the bio for the proposed elections committee member?
Yes.
Page
Yeah, we did.
95.
Uh-huh.
With Alan completing the term right now.
I guess we need to vote to bring on Hillary.
PR.
Pilar. Okay.
PR.
Is there a motion to entertain that?
I'll make a
Thank you,
motion.
Joe.
For Kabuja.
Thank you, Jane.
PR Whitmore.
Open for discussion. Being that there's no discussion, all in favor? Aye. And we don't see any opposition. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so now we can move on to communications. Patricia.
Yes, Communications Committee report. We had our last meeting last week, and we had a brief one. We just wanted to touch bases and have a feedback about the AGM. The feedback that everybody got and we had to report, it was positive. I don't want to go back again and talk about the attendance. The attendance actually, it was just, let's say, guys, we had a long week of rain, and it happened to be a Saturday, but it was beautiful. I myself was driving down to the Spit, and I was just thinking that I was going to spend a good 2 hours for a good cause, but you know, it was beautiful outside. The fact that we also had the availability to have on Zoom, a lot of people, you know, decided probably it was a better option and so on. To the point of the attendance, to the point of how come we don't have that many people, the Communications Committee has worked also on different ways how to bring attendance to the town halls. We had used person to person, door to door, trying to initiate and to have people to come and to have more attendance and more participation, but we need to look for other ways. Yes, the cost of that room and the cost of the AGM, it was just way too high. It's something that needs to be probably have to be reviewed for next year. We have quite a few months in order to do that, but we have to find another alternatives. Then we also met and we talked about the website. We're moving forward now with a lot more of documents that are going to be get from the actual site or office, and they're going to be included. So it's a process that is just going to take a couple more weeks, but it's looking very, it's looking good. We're going to probably have minor changes on the way that it looks at this moment to include a lot more pictures or sites that are not just going to be focused on what it is at this moment, which is mostly the resort. We're going to include pictures that are going to cover a lot more of the neighborhoods. Probably aerial pictures are going to be a lot more descriptive of what our community is, not just pictures from the Spit. But overall, the feedback that was taken from the AGM was positive. A lot of people were very happy about being included on their talks. It was very short, descriptive, Joe, to the point of not having too many papers and numbers being shown. People a lot, not to everybody understands a lot of all the papers and numbers being displayed at once in such a short time. So it was brief, it was short, but people liked what we presented. Overall, it was just very good. That's all what we have to communicate for the moment.
So how is the relationship with Jacob Lee coming along?
Jacob is being responsive. So far, we have a page on a Dropbox where everybody can make suggestions to that in order how he can improve the mapping. it was sent previously on an email, but I can forward that to everybody if you would like to take a look at that. It's a Dropbox where if you see something that is not working or needs to be adjusted, you guys can put your comments and he'll address it at the time.
So do we have a date that it's going to be completed?
We're talking with everybody. We're looking at least by the end of the year, we should have something that should be up to date and probably drop the actual one and put up the new one.
Are you going to announce when the new website is ready and taking over the old website?
Announcement, yes, probably will be nice to send everybody probably on the e-week or the news week. It will be a nice announcement to make. I think everybody's going to be happy to have a working site with all the information that is required for all residents.
Yeah, I guess I have two questions. One, were you telling us that there's been a request for us to look at the Jacob Lee map now and provide input about it?
Yes, you can do that. You can have access to it and you can look at it and see if you have any any suggestions or if you see something that is not properly displayed. Yes, you can put it on the Dropbox on a document and he'll update it. He will look at it and then he will make changes if necessary.
Are you talking about content or how it works?
Yes.
Say that again. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that properly.
Talking about the content of the thing or how it works in terms of
Well,
using
basically,
it
it's what it's going to, how it's going to work, right? The content is it comes out how it works.
I was unaware that we had the opportunity to do that. So I think we need, if you want feedback from the board members about that, we need to make it obvious and relatively easy for the board members to do that.
Okay. Yes, I completely agree with that. We'll forward that email tomorrow morning.
And the second question is, you know, whenever a new version of a website comes out, there are always issues. There are always things that need to be fixed. And what's the plan for making it easy for a person who goes on the website and say, can't find something, to send a message to whoever we're considering to be the webmaster to fix that?
The best approach to this, now we're going to have a search box, right? So on that search box, it's going to be a lot much easier if you type down a word, let's say budget. You're going to have a display of all the documents or links where you're going to have the word budget. So from there you can pick and have a link. So it's not going.
There needs to be a place where I type in, I need to talk to you. And it gives me the place to send my message about what problem I have with the website. We've got to be able to collect the information about where people are having trouble so that can get fixed and the website becomes more and more useful over time.
It goes to Steve Haynes at Comcast.net.
Yeah. Well, you're going to get a bill.
Okay. We can address that directly to the webmaster. Yes, I thought you were, Steve, I thought you were talking about when the website is already input. So, but yes, we can have that, send that directly to the webmaster. But that's just, it's going to be for the board members. It's not going to be for the public.
Hey, Patricia, this is John. I have a couple of questions. Has Jake made any updates to the mapping portion as of yet?
We found a couple of issues, which I sent it to him, and that he fixed them. After all, I have not really had time to really go through all the mapping around on all neighborhoods. But feel free to take a look back at the link that we sent you a while ago, and you can. You also have the link on that same email that was sent, and you can use the Dropbox to send your comments on it.
Thank you. I have already given Jake a number of issues to fix, and he has not fixed any of them. Back on November 4th. On November 4th,
Alrighty.
following the maintenance committee meeting, they requested that we have a meeting with Jake to talk about the map. I sent him a request to meet, as well as a request for the documentation that he owes us. And it has been radio silence. He has not responded with anything.
Okay.
Acknowledging the message.
Would it be possible for you to forward me that request, and I'll get in touch with him? And in the future, I will also appreciate that you CC me on any communication that goes to Jake.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Patricia, Joe, Sophie, in the website, do you know if it's being planned for there to be any secure parts of the website? One of the things I mentioned a couple months ago, and I'd like to mention again, is that I'd like there to be at least a repository. It could be Dropbox, it could be somewhere else, where we have board information that we can drop in to be able to look at. As an example, one of my beefs is when we have an agenda sent out today that's 30 megs big attached to an email, I can't even open it on some of my devices. We need to be able to have links. Then we get any amendments or adjustments to the meeting, and it doesn't update the current agenda, it gets separate documents sent out. So now I'm going back and forth between emails to try and find out, well, what are we talking about next? Okay, Steve got a new report for pricing for ASC. We need to get better with how we're managing our documentation and information as it pertains to the board. It's difficult to figure out where all this stuff is.
Okay, Joe, that's a different topic that has nothing to do with the website. That has to do with the server that is going to be on the office. So the server is the place where all the storage, the information is going to be. So in order for you to have access to that server, that has nothing to do with the website. So you access the server with a proper login, you update the document, and the document rests over there. Then anybody else on the board or anybody else that needs to have access, it will have to go again to the server. It has nothing to do with the website. That's IT solution that we can work on as well, but that will not be, I will not suggest to do that through the website whatsoever. That's an IT that is going to, an issue that is going to be dealt with within the office.
Okay, then maybe that's a different, it could certainly be a Dropbox with access or something like that.
But the Dropbox belongs to the office. It has nothing to do with the website.
All right.
I think that it would be good to maybe have just a little IT committee meeting or something, just to get together to talk about all the different things, because I think it would be good to have dedicated text, phone, email addresses for any kind of request, so that we can start tracking those and understand how long our response times are, and watch to see if any of those start to decline with improved maintenance or with improved processes.
Including access to all the committees, where there is, individual committees, even if they're all password protected by the committee chair people or whoever, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Patricia. Anything else?
Thank you.
Nope, I'm all good. Thank you.
Jane, safety and security.
Well, the Safety and Security Committee, they launched the block watch training yesterday. So we had a group of about 8 online and in the office here with Officer John Landis to go over the crime prevention program for the community, and then to also kind of focus on the CERT, which is the Community Emergency Training Response Training. So that is launched. We've given everybody their information and their guidebook. They'll go into the neighborhoods and implement the programs. It's more of a decentralized approach that everybody is taking. Your neighborhood, we have Dan Melf, which was great. And so anyway, the program's launched, and our next phase will be the CRT training, which the Whatcom County Sheriff Office usually does, but with COVID they're not. So we're kind of looking at how we're going to do that within the committee so we can get this in place.
So there were eight NHOAs represented?
Well, not completely. But it's probably about 6.
6.
Yeah.
So,
And Officer Landis thought that was good, considering. So we really don't have a huge response, but I think that it can morph and begin to grow.
Jane, was Drayton Hillside one represented?
No, they weren't.
Because we have an organized neighborhood watch with certified cert people. who've
Yes.
been
That's
trained.
down there,
Actually, Val is usually at the meeting, but she wasn't at the meeting yesterday. And I know that she's been very active, and she has the neighborhood mapped out. That's probably one area or community that is really engaged in servicing the community.
That's Boundary Ridge, right?
Yeah.
You were asking about.
Drayton Hillside.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, Michael
No,
Fenton
Mike-
was there.
Yeah, Mike was there.
Mike was. there.
Yeah.
But then he left, I think, didn't
No, he was there almost for the year.
We went, the neighborhood just got together and did this 2 or 3 years ago. We got several people who went to the cert training and had the list and all that stuff without an organized manager.
Well, I'll circle with Mike because I don't know if he's completely connected with that.
He's brand new at it.
Yeah,
Mary Lou Stewart was responsible for managing.
it's a funny thing. It wanes, interest. It kind of comes and goes. People come and go out of the community. So it's like having full interest and people really dialed in. That's going to be really the challenge with this.
well, it really helps when there's the organized homeowners associations, for example, Prestwick. We put that on our agenda
Yeah.
so that, it's part of our annual meeting discussion.
Mhm. And there is interest, like, Barb at the AGM, she came forward, she's interested in what our emergency plans. As we go through a situation like we just had earlier in the week, it really, begins to bubble up the importance of having something in place for our community that's just, it's not, people aren't running and scurrying to figure out what to do. We already know what to do, and we know the resources we have on hand.
Well, it certainly bubbled up this week.
It did. It did. So anyway, it's on my radar, and I'm looking at it.
Yep.
So Jane, when you say decentralized, does that term mean that each individual community is probably going to do things the way they think is necessary as opposed to, a common theme for the whole resort community?
We've given them a guide and with Officer Landis on how to launch it and how they feel they've got the interest from their community. And it's basically, he feels that you should have a watch of about up to 16 homes. And that's manageable. Anything beyond that, you can't watch and it's not as effective. So how you roll that out to 900 homes is, I personally feel like you're going to have strengths and weaknesses of everyone, and some people like in Prestwick are really going to dial into it and they're going to have it set up where they already know their peaks. They've got their mapping in place, and then there's going to be some other areas where it's just like our NHOAs. Some are, all over it, and others are not. But I think for the job for the SRA is like we're overarching and we've got to somehow fill in the pieces where there are holes. So Presswood is good, you know, like probably Drayton Hillside, they're on it. Boundary Ridges, down on the spit, we've got a, you know, it's a little bit of a system going on that we need to elaborate. St. Andrews, they're
Well, the
getting
problem,
it.
the challenge with St. Andrews is it's everywhere. It's big, you know, it's widespread, and so it's not Crested Quail Village. Which is- I would just add just one comment on the decentralization. Officer Landis said, you know, each community or each group of 16 homes has certain issues usually that they want to focus on. It's speeding, it's theft, it's, so then you organize yourself around those key issues and they can vary from neighborhood to neighborhood. So that's kind of the decentralized approach, to give yourself the flexibility to focus on one or another priority, but sort of the approach will be the same, right? You'll have all of your mapping, you have all the names of the people, you have your phone trees and all of this stuff. So everyone will be approaching it in the same way,
Yeah,
but there'll be some flexibility.
and you'll be working with the Blaine PD in providing them with information. He was talking about an example where there was someone who needed some medical attention, I think in St. Andrews, I'm not certain which one, over the last like week or so. And if he would have had that mapping of the phone tree or an email tree, he could have gone to those folks right away without, they were looking at doing a broader search of this individual, which they were able to find the individual without doing that. But they quickly could have, you know, in an hour, maybe got more people involved in the neighborhood.
Okay, so other than the condo associations, which are their own multi-unit buildings, I think there's, I could be off, I should know this, but I don't, somewhere around 600 homes that are currently occupied in the neighborhood. So from a desirable standpoint, probably having somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 or so individuals in each of these communities would be a desirable impact, maybe 6 months from now or something like that, as we move towards next fall season and Christmas, when, you know, hell hits like it just did. Something like that. Maybe that's one of the things that we plan to try and do over the next while.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Jane, I'll get you someone from area. I don't think we participate.
Yeah, that'd be great. The one thing that he did mention is that when we, you know, witness a crime or we see something suspicious, that we really should call 911. Didn't you feel that, Jeff? Is that there are things that are happening up here where people are not really taking that step and calling 911. Anything on the spit?
At the men's club meeting this morning, the chief of police was there to talk. And he specifically addressed calling 911.
Yeah.
I guess in the old days, people called Blaine PD on the common line and said, hey, I'm so-and-so over here.
Mm-hmm.
You want 911 because everybody in the county is on 911 on the emergency system, so they can see what's going on in Blaine.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they need help from Ferndale in the county or whatever, then they can go here. So he addressed call 911 for anything.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And I think it's a good, maybe we put that blurb in the newsletter, because, you know, those of us, a lot of probably around the table, we all grew up thinking 911 was only called in emergency situations. And he said the same. He said, I have the same, but he said, no, we want people to call 911 for everything.
Right. Another historical problem here, which is several years ago, you called 911 whenever you got sometimes. And that became really
Can't refuse them, yeah, to the mounted police, so.
No,
They had to
because
cross the border.
the border guys wouldn't let them.
Yeah, no horses.
Hey, if you got T-Mobile, it's not gonna come and get a welcome to Canada text.
So those of us that have cell phones only now, I guess, I don't know if that's still a thing or not.
They fixed the 911.
Did they?
But, for a while, there was a different number you had to call. It was a 10-digit number.
Oh, my God, it's here.
So, yeah, so if there's a stray dog running down the street.
Anything else, Jane?
That's it.
Good work. Thank you. Jeff, governance report.
Nothing to report this meeting.
Terrific. Thank you.
Next time.
We'll be right on.
Yeah.
Joe, maintenance.
Yeah, thank you. The, in your packet is the annual maintenance committee report to the board of directors covering roads and curbs, stormwater gates, signs, effectiveness of the maintenance plan, and other issues regarding SRA assets. If there are any questions, I'm going to assume everybody has read it. I'll entertain questions, and in the absence of questions, I'm going to jump to the very end, the other issues. Page and just comment about that, or I guess we're talking about written code later. So I'll defer a section that talks about the Drayton Harbor path until then.
I'm sure I speak for everybody here. It was nice to see a nice comprehensive report on our maintenance. And I thought it was well done. And it gives me confidence moving into next year that we're going to have a good maintenance program in place.
Yeah, and Bruce deserves a lot of thanks for his effort that he put into gathering up a lot of the details. So thank you, Bruce. Any other questions or comments?
So next year, I know we've got a plan to do a bunch of work on signs and et cetera. The signs as well as gates. So are you using some of this report where you've got 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s, et cetera, as a highlight of the signs and dates and stuff you're going to start working towards?
The plan would be to work from the top.
Okay.
The worst condition first, and depending on how you count, there's 9 or 10 of them. I think we arbitrarily chose 10 signs. 9 of them are really obvious candidates. There's 3 more signs that have, 1 lousy post and 1 post that's okay. So maybe we'll just do the 9 where they're both really bad the first year, and then keep plugging away, as budget and energy persists.
From a budgetary standpoint, I don't think there's any, starting in January, because these are generally reserve stuff. There's no, do we do it in January or June or July or whatever? Are they going to be just started in sequential order or something like that, or soon, or going to wait till the summer when the weather's a little better? Who knows?
That would really depend on Bruce's workload to get an RFQ put together. My preference would be that we just do them in a batch and get it over with and not stretch it out any longer than absolutely necessary.
Have the signs and stuff been the new ones that are going to come out? Have they been decided as to what the posts are going to be? Are they going to be consistent with what's semi out of the building here, or that's still to be determined?
There has been no discussion about trying to use the new building sign as a model in any respect. The thinking is the signs will look essentially the way they always have, but with an aluminum powder coated sign itself as opposed to the wood carved painted thing.
Okay.
And the posts, pending the outcome of Bruce's paint, the adhesion study, they're going to be pressure treated posts that get painted to look like the old normal untreated posts, and they should have a much longer durability. And the budgetary number was based on the best available information for those posts and the sign itself and installation.
I'm going to ask maybe a dumb question, but in the interest of including residents in the information before it's done, is there going to be a mock-up of what one of the signs might look like for any comments or whatever? Because I know I'm not saying it should be done or shouldn't be done, but it's one of those things that when they feel included, or potentially included, then they don't have a right to start bitching about it after the fact.
The intent is to make it look and feel just like the old sign, but be durable and.
All right.
And so I don't see a need to get community input to throw sand in the gears on this particular thing, unless we were going to change the look or the sign, then I think that would be essential.
Okay.
So this is just.
Seeing how we have brand new signs that San Diego Shores that seem to do a pretty nice job. I would think that
The developer at San Diego Shore got permission to have one backlit in the kind of a cursive looking script. They will not be that way. These will be similar to Beachwalker or I think that's a metal sign. So that will be the template. There are, as you see in this report, a number of different sizes, height, width. And I don't know why that is the case. There's a recommendation for at least going forward. For example, at St. Andrews Green 1, where there's two signs and an island in the middle. The idea, and this is very low on the list because the sign's in good shape, but eventually move that to a single sign on the island as opposed to two signs, and that would be like St. Andrews 3 and there's some other locations. Drayton Cove has a sign in the middle on the island, and that would have fewer signs to maintain and lower the cost.
and there's no discussion about lighting them like they did with San Diego Shores.
No, there has been no discussion.
Actually, during a heavy wind, the adhesive did come off away from that, and Bruce did replace it or fix
You're
it.
talking about the little logo?
It's the like the white that it's almost like a plexiglass.
Oh,
It just blew enough to push it away, and so it dropped down inside the sign itself. For longevity.
No, thank you for this document. It's a good document.
Very well done.
yeah, it would be really helpful when we start our strategic planning and our long-term.
Hopefully, and there's some holes. Not all the roads have been evaluated. Probably 60% of them have been, and the necessary maintenance has been shown on there. The only thing that I think needs further study is Puffin Place East, where Bruce feels there's 250 feet of road that needs to be replaced. I would make the point after watching it, it's not that bad. And there's only 3 homes. So if our recent history is any indication, that's going to be $100,000 to fix a very small segment of road that serves 3 homes. And that would not be my recommended priority at this point. We should do less extensive measures if at all possible.
Yeah, I would agree.
And beyond that, if there's no, Joe?
Should I ask a question about the Great Harbor Path, or is that going to come up a little bit later on? Because that's a big source of.
It's a separate topic.
Because I know it's on page 8 of your document.
Yeah, we raised it a few weeks ago, and when this was
All right,
finalized as an issue, and sure enough, it is.
good enough.
That's all I have.
Terrific. Thank you, John. Good work. And is Bill McNally on?
No, it's not.
Okay, so environmental committee,
If I may, John, did you want to make any reference to the landscaping outsource, the RNF queue, or did you want to just go on?
Well, when the maintenance committee last met, there was a preliminary draft of the landscape request for quote. And sometime after that meeting, there was a little bit of input given to suggest preference for potential contractors that use environmentally
equipment.
Ele- Electric tools instead of gas, two-cycle gas blowers and things like that, as well as environmentally responsible materials, fertilizers or pesticides or whatever. And that was incorporated, but sometime between then and now, the RFQ underwent a dramatic transformation, and I gave some feedback to Bruce saying it's far too confusing and we probably won't get anyone to bid on it. It looks like there's unique requirements at each and every gate, as well as some other things about area, he asked for, I think most bidders are going to want to bid on doing the grass at the parks and things like that. I mean, that's what they do. But Bruce is pretty insistent that it includes aerating the grass, even though we have never done it and it's not in the, it's unnecessary, we can't afford it. The whole point of this was to do a cost-effective alternative to labor that we can't hire. And Bruce's response to me, I'm sorry, Bruce, I'm gonna throw you under the bus, but he just categorically dismissed all of the feedback that I gave and said that the only reason the maintenance committee got to see it in the first place was because I had suggested that was a good idea. And I replied saying that I cannot, the maintenance committee has not met since this was received, but it's unconscionable to send this out, and I do not support it. And the response I got from Bruce was effectively too bad. So that's all I'm going to say. And it's in here. You can form your own opinions.
I do.
So Bruce, are you still on the phone or on the line?
I am.
And what's the status of that RFP?
It just where it's stood when I gave it to the committee. I'm sorry, not the committee, but the board put it in the board packet. Haven't changed it at all. If the board would like to see it reduced or dumbed down, I can do that. I don't recommend it though.
Joe.
So I'm sure lots of you have been in companies where you see RFPs, queues, whatever you want to call them. A 50-page RFP for a potential less than $100,000 budget is like unbelievably comprehensive. And if there's somewhere around 30 different vendors who are identified, and I'm thinking, I can't even think that 27 or so would respond or even look at it saying, all I want to do is cut grass. I want to go and trim edges. So it's comprehensive from a business perspective, but perhaps significant overkill. And I'm sort of wondering if, to John's point, I think, breaking up in component parts where there might be one company that is good at doing these types of things and another company that's good at doing these types of things, rather than have one that tries to do all of them, which could be a far overreach. My second question, or my second comment, is that I don't think it's really important to do it right now or get it out, because between December and January, I don't think it's really important to figure out who's going to be doing our landscaping as we hit March, April, May. In January, we would probably need to have some of these kinds of things put out so that we get an idea of who's around. Things are going to change between now and then as to who some of these small landscaping companies are. But I think it's much too comprehensive for what we're potentially looking for.
Yeah, I would agree. When I looked at it, I thought that although there's a lot of work and a lot of thought put into it, I think that the bid document is just, it's something I think that will probably discourage probably 99% of the bidders. So I think John, maintenance committee should probably work closely with Bruce in January to develop a bid document that does what we think it should do, and make sure that our scope of work is focused on what we think needs to be done. So, and Bruce, I would I would hope that you would work closely with the maintenance committee on developing that document and taking their lead on that.
Yeah, Doug, I'm sorry. My wife is just getting home. The dogs are barking. Yes, answer is yes to that.
Okay. All right, thanks, John. Going on to continuing business and voting is necessary. So the new business, continuing business voting, is there anything in there, Debbie, that?
No, I don't.
Okay, so new business and voting is necessary. Appointment of officers. Now, what was in the package, Debbie, is that I'm to solicit what your desires are for the coming year, as far as your role on the board, what position you'd like to be engaged with and stuff. And so if you guys could do that, and I'm hoping that 3 or 4 of you will volunteer or have aspirations to be president.
What do you really mean, one person at least, volunteers?
But so at the next meeting, we will actually then decide on officers. But I need to know from everybody what you want to do. Share that information, and then we'll get together in our meeting next month and figure out what our officers are going to be. And we'll probably also talk about our chairmanships of committees.
So are you saying, Doug, are you going to send out an email to all of us and say, hey, please respond with what you're interested in doing or whatever?
Well, I'd like you just to send me, each of you to send me just a brief note saying what the interests are, and what you'd like your role to be in the board.
So maybe I should add, because of a couple of new people, since the adoption of new committees in the past year, well, frankly, it was about a year ago, give or take, pretty much everyone has to chair a committee. Everyone has to be on the committee. Everyone has to pretty much share a committee. There's enough committees with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 positions, but there will be a responsibility that's sort of expected for everybody in this room.
And the 2 obvious vacancies that are coming up is communications committee and our environmental committee. Those 2 are Bill McGowan was chair of environmental, and Patricia was chair of communications. So
Yeah, there's a problem with the requirement for each committee to be chaired by a board member in the absence of at least 2 board members on the committee. Because if you want continuity, the chairman of a committee, ideally, in a well-running, established organization, would have been on the committee for a while before becoming chair.
Correct.
And that ain't gonna happen if you don't have 2 people from the board on each committee. And if it's only 2 people on the board for each committee, your future and fate is pretty well determined.
especially if they come on the board at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, so I think we're gonna have to deal with that. If we want to have continuity in running these committees.
Is there, in your opinion, this is only a new thing in the last year and it came in place before I joined the board and a few of us joined the board, is it always going to be a requirement that the person chairing each committee is a member of the board?
That is the thing.
That's
the board
current.
put in place.
That's current.
The charters require that, generally speaking.
And I think it's pretty rational.
I understand.
Because the committee then is always represented at the board meetings and so.
And there's accountability.
So from what you're not suggesting, just stating, is it desirable then to have perhaps 2 people on the board, or sorry, an individual on the board be a part of at least 2 committees? So I was saying 1. So you're suggesting that, and I don't disagree with you, I think it's probably a good idea, that maybe we play a main role in one and a backup part in another one, so at least there's continuity. for it, even if it's things for like vacation or whatever, never mind, annual process.
Trips to Europe.
Hot Springs, Florida, yeah.
I think that.
No, that's a good thing.
I think it's a good thought. I mean, the continuity on our committees is the thing that's really, really important.
Mhm.
And that's probably been lacking in the past. So
All right.
give it some thought next meeting.
So during the process, Doug, so let's just, all of us say everyone wants to be the treasurer, which would be fabulous. No, it'd be great, except for you. So are you gonna communicate back before the meeting and say, we got some holes here and there to the whole group?
Yeah, I think it would be good to share what everybody would like to do with each other, and so that we know who wants to do what and where there's skills. Yeah,
But not only the committees, right?
Yeah.
Because it's,
no,
and the vice president by default is the governance chair. I
right.
didn't choose to be the governance chair necessarily, so. I mean, some of those things, I think that's the only one, right? Vice president is.
And treasurer is fine.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we'll move along so we get out of here. Banking resolution, Debbie?
Okay, I put the banking resolution in, that it would go into effect as of December 1st with my departure on November 30th. And so it's a formality to give this to the bank and then know that my signature will be available.
This doesn't require a board resolution. This is just a resolution on banking.
This is the resolution.
So it does require a board resolution.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and so this takes you out, it puts Jeff, Doug, and Joe as signatories.
Right now, you are signatories, but what it's doing is revoking anyone that has previously been on.
Okay. I'll go ahead and propose a motion to accept this resolution. Second, John, thank you, John. Any discussion about the resolution? It's really kind of a.
So effectively, so the way we sign checks or allow money to be spent from our association, for lack of a better term, we currently got Debbie is generally assigning authority except for reserve expenditures where it must be 2 board members. So what we're doing right here, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is saying that with Debbie's impending departure, that now it'll be the 3 of us needing to sign everything to allow money to go out the door. I believe. So one of the
two out of three.
Sorry, 2 out of the 3 must sign. So there are a series of auto debits. Yeah, I mean, everyone needs to know that. We should probably do a more formal process for notifying that all formal or auto debits that are coming out of the bank or out of some expense account, debit accounts, whatever they might be, probably get approved in advance so that every single bank debit that hits our account is formally approved, because right now there are a series of things that I didn't know about that are coming out, not very many, but there are some things that are coming out on a periodic basis that aren't necessarily approved. There's a debit card where we spend thousands of dollars a month. I don't know how that gets approved. It certainly doesn't get approved in advance, I'm pretty sure, although maybe I'm wrong. I just see the results of thousands of dollars going out of the bank. So I have to make sure to categorize properly. We probably need to be a little more forthcoming in figuring out how much is spent and make sure it's all approved appropriately.
See?
Well, I mean, if there's an auto debit, that's a regular expenditure.
It's not the same amount, it's to a same center.
Not the same amount, then you really need to do, I mean, retroactive approval would work.
So going forward, we can't do it. Going backwards is one of those things, but going forward, like it might be to, as an example, SSC, or it might go to the city of blank, or it might go to, a supplier of internet services or whatever it might be. Those are the types of things that would lend itself. Think about your personal life and the things that you might have as auto debits. Those are the types of things that we should blanket approve in advance.
Right. And every once a year or something. It gets
Updated,
updated.
look at all those types.
So you don't want to have to look at every single one of those that's repeated, already approved expenditure.
No. This is about making sure that they're approved to come out of the bank account by the board. And that there is some oversight by the treasurer or the finance person, whoever it might be, or the general manager.
I don't even think it requires a board. I think it just requires the 3 signatories to get together and say.
Correct. And so this is just an informational thing.
Joe, how many of those auto debits are we talking about?
Not very many, just a few, but I want to encourage it. So one of the things that happens here right now is a lot of busy work. So being an accountant, I would say that we're just getting out of the 90s with how we're doing a lot of our processing and stuff right now. We need to figure out how to move into the 2020s, maybe move to the 2010s first, in how we process transactions around here. It's not a big deal to get there. We'll get there. We'll just figure out how do we get there.
Okay, moving along. Oh, yeah. All in favor of the resolution? Yes.
So next month, this might change. Because this is applicable December 1. If there's a new president, these are isolated to people. They should probably be isolated to positions for it to be in perpetuity, but we'll probably have to redo this one if we have any changes for people. Steve's signing it.
Exactly. I would like to make a motion that we change our agenda. And the motion would be that we reschedule scheduling our strategic planning at our next meeting. And that we do the review of the responsible and cool recreation easement at our next meeting as well. Only because I think we need to get into executive session. Because I don't want to be here till 9 o'clock today. Is that okay with you guys?
No. All in favor?
All in favor?
Yeah.
All right. Right, so then, so sorry, John, that we're doing that. All right, so we will now move into executive session.
Okay.
And,
Give me just a moment to move people to the waiting room. Do you expect that if they hang out in the waiting room that there will be motions after? Doug?
yes, there will be.
Okay, all right, I will start moving them now.
Yes, thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming. See you all meet some of you. Thanks.
Yeah. Are we ready, Laura?
Not yet.
So I should probably ask a technical question. So the new board members are the technically board members. And should they technically-
Okay, we are ready after
Okay, thanks.
Joe's
Are you still
question.
recording?
I will stop the recording.
Okay. Steve, do you want to just report on the 2 fines that we?
So there was discussion of 2 fines that were, one was suspended and one was reversed.
Yes.
And then on the other details, we have, the board has agreed to take Leroy full time. And Joe and I will be negotiating the details of that.
We're recording right now.
Correct. And I think that's all we have to do at this point. Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Right.
What?
Good.